Hi, how are you? It's a pretty common thing to say to each other when we greet each other. How you doing? How's it going? My name is Mimi Weisberg. I'm a clinical social worker, and I'm a member of the Safe Community Coalition's Mental Health Committee. Hi, how are you? It feels so commonplace, and yet in our pandemic times, it's hard to know how to answer that question. For some of us, this time during the pandemic and the lockdown and the isolation is actually working for us. Some people are more shy, they're not as socially comfortable, they learn over the computer well, they love being around their family, they have the kind of room that they want, and it's really working for them. Okay. And then there's some people right now who are doing okay. They're getting by. They may lose their focus when they're studying and online. A little snippy with their family and their parents and their friends. Not seeing friends as much. Maybe there's some more restrictions in their home than there are in other people's homes. But they're managing. They're just not great. And then there's some of us who are not doing well at all. We're feeling sad, we're feeling lonely, we're feeling anxious, frustrated, annoyed, irritable, and possibly depressed. It makes sense that we may be feeling all of these things at the exact same time, and it's extremely confusing. We all search for a secure base, to feel good about ourselves, to feel comfortable, to feel as though the sands aren't shifting, and they are shifting right now. And just when we have a sense that things are slowing down and the earth isn't moving so much underneath us, something else happens in our world and there's more shifting sand again. And that can be very unnerving. So when we're asked, how are we doing? How do we answer that question? To some people who are acquaintances, we just say fine and we go on our day. To other people who really care about us, they really want to know, how are we doing? And it needs to be okay to be able to say, I'm not okay. And I think particularly for teens and young adults, it's the most difficult for them, for you, even though we're all suffering and challenged by these times. And the reason I think it's the most difficult is because the task and the goal of teenage years and young adulthood is for independence, for autonomy, for making decisions on your own, looking at all your options, picking choices. And right now, you can feel like you don't have any of that opportunity, that everything is shut down for you, and you're living in this kind of box. And in some ways, we are. In other ways, I think it's important to find control, because that's one of the things we also want at these years when we're teenagers and young adults, is I want control over my life. I want to make decisions. I'm ready to figure it out and learn from my mistakes. And it's really difficult when, again, we're so isolated and shut down and possibly feeling alone. If we're feeling alone and we're feeling depressed, it's important to talk to someone. If you hear someone saying to you, hey, I'm a little worried about you, and you hear it maybe more than once, it's something to pay attention to, because in this time, we may not be able to be as in touch with ourselves as we usually are. So heed that note if somebody, especially if somebody who cares about you says, I'm a little worried about you. Stop and think about that. And if you are worried about yourself, please know that there are people out there that you can talk to. There are resources that you can access. In particular, on the Safe Community Coalition's website will be handouts on anxiety, on depression, on tools and skills to get through these troubled times. If one of the ways that we feel secure and comfortable and like ourselves is being with our friends and really having close contact, and that's not something that we can do right now, we can feel very stymied and feel as though other things are controlling us instead of having that agency and autonomy that we really want and need, particularly at this time of life. So what can we do? I watched a video the other night that I want to mention because in it I thought was something that was just brilliant. It's called The Hunt for the Wilder People. It's been out a few months, maybe a few years. In it, there is a young man, and he's about 13 or 14, and he has been bopped around from foster home to foster home, maybe adoption, maybe not, and he's a troubled child. He also happens to be a very big boy, and he is bullied, and he also can get pretty aggressive. And he's brought to a new home, and it's about the relationship that he develops with these people. But one of the things he learned, because he would have explosive outbursts, and he needed to learn how to control himself if he was going to stay in any of these foster homes, which became a problem for him. He's taught by his social worker a skill, a technique to manage his anxiety, his anger, his frustration, all those deep-seated feelings. She taught him how to write a haiku. And a haiku, for those of you who don't know, is a 3-line poem. The first line has 5 syllables, the second line has 7 syllables, and the third line has 5 syllables again. The purpose was for him to be able to get out and express all of what he was feeling. And for some of you, journal writing is great and you can just automatically start writing and getting it all out. For other people, that becomes more difficult. And he needed a way to focus and center himself, because he had a lot of big feelings inside him. And so it's a brilliant, brilliant technique, because it gives you the opportunity, and you have to be focused and intent on how you're feeling to let your words come out. It gives you something to do to distract you from the sadness and the other feelings that you may be having. And it's poetry. So you're writing, you're creating. And I just thought it was one of the most brilliant techniques I have ever heard. And I'm going to start using it with many of my clients, my teenagers, my adults, and my families. Another thing that you can do is, in terms of this needing and wanting control of your life, when you feel like you have no control, is to realize that actually you do. You can control how you take care of your body. You can take care of, which is how you eat, how you sleep, you're bathing, you're brushing your teeth, all those, wearing your mask, cleaning your mask, all those kind of things that we have to do right now. That is one area that you can have control over. Another may be how you spend your free time. It may not feel like you have control, and if it doesn't feel like you have control, have a talk with your family and say to them very simply, this is the time when I would be out there with my friends, making decisions, figuring things out on my own. I'm not out there, I'm not running around with my friends, I'm not going to go to dances, football games, just loitering around town. And I'm feeling really stymied and I'm feeling squashed. I need your help to help me find a way to become more independent, to make decisions for myself. That's something that I need right now. It may take off a little bit of the steam that I've been feeling. It's important to ask for what you need and to figure out what that is. And if you can't figure it out on your own, you can call a therapist, you can talk to a friend, you can talk to a neighbor's parents. Reaching out is very important right now. And finding many different ways to do that is very important right now, so we don't feel isolated and we don't feel alone. Because we're all feeling these experiences. Another thought I have is that the virus and the pandemic and the way we're dealing with it is kind of like the fluorescent lights. You walk into a room, somebody flips up that fluorescent light, and you're jarred for a minute. And then after a while, you get used to it. But it's always there. It's a buzz in the back of your brain. It's getting into your eyes. It's affecting us whether we know it or not. That's really what the pandemic has been like for many of us. And if you feel that way, you're not alone. So to understand that a lot of the things that you're going through and experiencing make sense. There's nothing particularly wrong with you because you're not happy and you can't find a little joy in your life right now. I want to go back to that feeling of ways and how can I have some control over my life, some autonomy, some feeling of connectedness to the outside world. It's hard to know in these times what you need and what you want. Spending a few moments by yourself and not being afraid of the feelings that come up is really helpful. Looking at some of the videos that we have on the SCC website can be enormously helpful. Reaching out to someone you haven't reached out to in a long time and seeing how they're doing. These are the things that can help us feel a little bit more grounded and understand that we're not alone. So until next time, thank you.